we are on this morning. Thank you, Carmen. I always forget to do that. That being said, those of Matagami and the Matachewan First Nations, I would note that yesterday's visit by the Pope to the Meskwakis First Nations to apologize for the deplorable evil of the Indigenous abuse in Catholic residential schools was an important milestone to many Indigenous people, and we stand ready to support them as we recognize this first step to truth and reconciliation. We acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people who call this land home. Welcome to our session entitled Advanced Canva Workshop with myself, Cameron Grant, Senior Policy Analyst for the Chamber, and Taran Basan, Program Coordinator for Link North. This session is brought to you under our brand pillar within our Reimagined Resiliency series, which is proudly supported by our very own Link North and Case Alliance. It is imperative for any small, medium-sized enterprise, nonprofit, or charity to look at the digital platforms to ensure their business's ongoing viability. While Northern Ontario continues to be historically underfunded in broadband infrastructure, and many owners and operators lack capacity within their organization to pursue viable tech platforms, this need to pivot to the online is vital to their continuity and recovery. With the support of Link North, who we'll hear about in just a moment, and Case Alliance, this pillar continues to understand that SMEs and other organizations lack the human resource to create, curate, and actively maintain an online presence and provide tangible resources to elevate that presence. Joining me here today, of course, is Taran, as I had previously introduced, and Taran is going to talk a little bit about Link North's programs and services. And Taran, I'll pass the floor to you.
Thank you so much, Cameron. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Taran. As Cameron mentioned, I'm the program coordinator with Link North. I have a background in graphic design and marketing. So a little bit about us, we're a regional innovation center. So we work with innovative entrepreneurs and businesses to help them commercialize or scale their operations. We provide advisory services, workshops, masterclasses, and funding to businesses operating within far northeast Ontario, including Timmins in the region. So our Boost Funding program supports commercialization, business startup, expansion, or improvement efforts by providing a 50% contribution towards business modernization and enhancement efforts. So eligible costs could include equipment, marketing and branding, information technologies, and more. So if you'd like to get in touch with me regarding our Boost Funding program, I'll leave my information in the chat box for you.
That's excellent. Thank you very much, Taran. And obviously excited to be back here with you again to talk about Canva, some of the time-saving tricks, some of the tips and tricks, that will hopefully amplify or elevate your brand, depending on how you utilize it right now. I know that we'll do a quick recap with Taran as to, some of the points that you can expect us to hit this morning. But I did want to note that I appreciated everybody's willingness to provide some feedback within the survey that we had sent out before this event. I will note that none of you had any questions, so that means that you've come with an open mind. That's excellent to know. Beyond that, I would say that about 2/3 of you had indicated that you utilize Canva Pro. I do want to note that for this particular session, it is not imperative that you have the licensed version. If you have the free version, most of the stuff that we'll go through today, you'll have access to, barring a few likely accesses to some of the more bolstered, stock photography or things like that. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Beyond that, most of you had noted that you're looking at utilizing Canva to enhance your social media marketing. And I would likely reckon that this is a good source to use it from. Myself personally, I do not have a background in graphic design. However, we've been utilizing Canva now for probably 2 to 3 years. So I'm largely going to rely on Taran for the technical stuff. But beyond that, I note that basically all of you are here today to learn a little bit more about how to utilize Canva best, optimizing it for your brand, your colors, your themes and your font. And then beyond that, we'll have a little bit of an open dialogue about how our brand currently works for our businesses and organizations, and where we want to get to another level or another point within 6 months to a year. Before I go on to talk about branding, Taran, did I miss anything?
No, I think you covered everything.
Okay, well, you let me know. Of course, the Chamber had undergone a rebrand back in 2018, I believe. And at that time, we certainly recognized our brand had been recognizable, but a little bit outdated. And so, the important part about recognizing or investing in a potential rebrand, and it doesn't need to be a massive $100,000 investment, although I will note that big companies like Nike and Apple have such recognizable branding because they dump billions of dollars into marketing, because you're not selling a product, you're selling an experience. So some of the things that we'll chat about today, particularly with your brand's usability or transferability up into Canva, is going to be critical on the ways in which you have access to your branding. Is it just a simple image? Do you actually have what's called a vector file or a workable file? Do you have PNG versions of it so that you can actually have a transparent background, so it has multiple applicabilities to different colored backgrounds depending on what you put on it? I'm talking a little bit fast, but we'll break it down later on. But effectively, the importance of brand, particularly as it ties to your product or service that you provide, is highly important to the recognizability of your consumer. Especially these days, we're noticing that. And I say this often, and I'm sure Taran's heard me say it before, I'm looking at my Apple phone, or at least, the younger generation or new generation of consumers are wearing their Ray-Bans, they're wearing their Adidas, they've got their iPhones in their hand, and they're seeing all this branding to which they adhere to which they find important about their own social branding and their own experiences. And, you want to make sure that that feeling that they have is already being highly targeted consumer demographics. When they look at your brand, they look up at your sign, that they're seeing some sort of transfer of familiarity. And Android is acceptable. Yes, Carmen, I didn't mean to discriminate. My apologies. But beyond that, it's just really important that you're looking at your brand in the sense of the new consumer's way of purchasing. And that is all about the experience. How are they influencing it on Instagram? How are they tweeting about you? How are they portraying your product? That's your free ambassadors that you're creating through your consumer base. And so from that, Taran, let's talk a little bit about what we plan to cover today and how we plan to go about it.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I think you hit some really key points, Cameron. Definitely branding is about recognition. And it's also kind of impactful too when you consider your advertising as well, right? You want your consumers to be able to kind of recognize that experience and associate it with that brand as well. So I really think that's an important point. And it's also kind of important for employee advocacy as well. If you have a strong brand and you have a strong brand vision, your employees will also kind of buy into that as well. So it's also internal. You can think of this inside your organization as well. So in terms of Canva, we do have a number of things that we want to show you, but before doing so, I wanted to kind of open the floor and see if anybody had any very specific questions that they would like us to demonstrate, any tutorials. Feel free to write them in the chat box if you're shy, but if not, we would love for you to turn on your cameras as well.
I was gonna say, if not, we'll call you out because who wants to break the ice? Madison, tell us why you're here. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, I did share this with Taran earlier today, but I sit on the board of a lot of some nonprofits in Timmins, and one thing that nonprofits tend to struggle with is capacity and time to do social media, to create graphic design templates. So what I was hoping to get out of this today is tips and tricks for really cutting down on that time investment that you have to kind of put into the development of these kinds of graphics, so that if I don't know if it exists on Canva or not, but the ability to kind of create templates that are matching your colors, your branding, that you were talking about, Cameron, and then you can kind of just plug in various information to put something out there so that it doesn't take as much time to develop. So that's what I'm hoping to get out of today. I don't know if that exists within Canva. I guess we'll find out. But yeah.
That's a good point. And I should note that neither Taran nor I are employed by Canva or work for Canva or are getting any financial benefit for doing this workshop. But we just recognize that it's a great tool, especially for those sort of amateur avid graphic designers. So Madison, I don't think you're alone. I do want to note that while the majority of us are joining in Timmins here, that there are some of our members across the 32 Northern Chambers of Commerce. And so if you're joining us from then anywhere in Northern Ontario, hello and welcome. Does anybody else want to share anything before we move on? I know that some of you in your professional capacity may be here as Madison is, because you sit on a fair number of charities or boards. Is there anything that really pops. For now, keep in mind that you're welcome to unmute yourself or put it in the chat as we continue to move through the session. We'll call some other people out, so always be ready. That being said, Taran, I think we can start to move through our session.
Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and share my screen. We'll start off with a kind of a quick overview of Canvas features, as some things that you might not know about, and we'll touch on your point as well, Madison, about the brand kit and the branding template. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
I see your screen.
Awesome, okay. Yeah, so this is what Canva looks like. Hopefully your guys' interface kind of looks something similar to this. If you're using Canva Pro, I believe that this is what it does look like for you. So you have over here kind of your recent designs, so you can easily access these guys down below. And then you kind of have like your groups and stuff on the side here. So once you hit your menu over here, this is kind of where you'll go to see sort of the overview of your branding, your content planners, your templates, projects. So we'll just go into the brand really quick. So as you can see, we've already uploaded our brand. This is Link North. So we've uploaded different variations of that as well. And these are all in PNG formats, which means that they have the transparent background. And if you're somebody who does not have a logo with a transparent background, you can also create that in Canva itself too. And we can go ahead and show you that afterwards as well. And then that way it's just kind of like it's clean and it's there, it's ready for you to apply to any sort of design that you're creating. And then when you scroll down below, you have your brand colors that you can access here, and you can also kind of add more to them too as you go on. I know that sometimes things change and you just need to kind of pop in more stuff there. And then our brand fonts, you can also upload your fonts as well. So I'm not too sure if any of you guys have been given brand manuals when your brands were created. If so, they would have kind of told you, here's your font. So ours is Fiera Sans Fold, and it needs to be in the 31.5 weight. And then our subheaders need to be in the 18 weight. And our body is the lighter font, which is in the 12 point weight. And also you would have probably been given a file of these different fonts that were pre-uploaded onto your computer. If you work for a corporation, this is typically how it works, and you can easily drag and drop that. So your brand colors, if we were to kind of add, there's also a generator here that you can add your own colors if you're creating a brand from scratch, but you can add your custom palette here. So
on that note, Taran, while we're overviewing this, I'm going to launch a bit of a poll asking if you've recently undergone a rebrand, just so that we can get a sense of who has some updated stuff. So while Taran continues, I've just opened that poll for you to answer.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, so if you have been given a brand manual, you would have been told kind of what your colors are. And Canva makes it kind of easy that you can just upload your hex code of your colors. So really quick, just not to dive too deep into it, but you probably have been given brand colors in the format of RGB or CMYK. RGB is for digital use. It's so that you can, it's a screen, it's compatible for screens. And CMYK is for print material, just to kind of differentiate the two so you guys are aware. And then we use our hex code for all website stuff. So that's why Canva asks for your hex code. It's also probably the easiest one to upload. And if you don't have that readily available, but you have your colors, there's plenty of ways that you can kind of just Google RGB, what is my hex code for this code? And then you can input that in there. So these are brand colors, brand fonts. We've already gone over that. And our logos, we can just upload them here. You can just go straight into your kind of folders here. And if you're organized, everything should be here for you. And I would highly recommend doing something like this so that you're not constantly dragging and dropping your logo into new designs. And then to your point, Madison, so Canva just came out with this new feature actually for branded templates. So if you're kind of consistently going back and you're doing those reports, those annual reports or presentations, business cards, posters, etc., and you have you want to kind of make sure that your branding is consistent and on point, you can actually go into here and create these templates for you so that you don't have to always go back in and find a new template. And sometimes it takes a lot of time as well. Canva does offer a lot of templates. And in doing so, you can kind of tweak each template so that not every template is the same. So not every single design that you're seeing in your social media stream is similar to somebody else's, because I know that that's one of the main things with Canva as well, is that we're so used to seeing very similar designs, because a lot of people do use Canva, but a lot of people don't really make the designs their own. So we would kind of encourage you to sort of tweak it and make it your own. And that's kind of where the branding and the colors come in there and the font.
And I have to say, Taran, too, like having an eye for design obviously is key. And sometimes, you as the owner operator or ED for, your organization will likely recognize that you need to identify somebody within your organization to be that brand ambassador, with yourself having, oversight over it, of course. But, it can't, as Taran had said, Canva is an excellent tool to sort of help navigate and guide you, but don't be afraid to do a little bit of a deeper dive. Don't just grab the first photo, because know that all other, 500 businesses in town are also thinking of using that photo as well. So to Taran's point, dig a little bit, but anyway, just thought I'd add that anecdote in there.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, Cameron. And to your point, mentioning that there's one brand ambassador within your team. Canva actually does have this feature as well, where you can kind of put controls on Canva teams. So if you do have a brand ambassador, or you have, your marketing manager, or etc., you need that person's approval, you can actually run that functionality through Canva. So you can get that approval right away, and then quickly post to social, because Canva also now has a feature of being able to direct publish to socials, which we will show you as well. So this is kind of a new tool. This is a really cool one. I haven't quite used it yet. This is the content planner. So for those of you who use social media automation tools such as Hootsuite and those types of things, this would come very, very handy to you. So you can kind of make all your designs and sort of preload them into your content planner, and this guy will publish them direct to your social channels. And what I love so much about this calendar actually is that it actually has all these fun social media holidays. I don't know if they're called holidays, but like International Day of Charity, International Podcast Day, World Smile Day, and things to kind of you can create social posts around. And as you want to engage kind of and create that content for your consumers so that they can, engage with you and kind of build that brand trust. And then discover apps. So we have a whole bunch of apps here. I don't use this feature too often. I'm not going to lie. I usually use it within my design, so I don't often come to this page in particular, but I do know that there's quite a lot of apps in here. And if you are somebody who does use a lot of apps within your organization, it might be worthwhile to come here and sort of explore this page. And as you can see, you can link your Instagram, your Facebook, your Google Drive, Google Photos. I know they have one for MailChimp as well if you use an eBlast tool for your organization. So that's in here, and you can kind of import your media here as well.
Taran, I'm curious now, and this I operate differently, but just in terms of like best practices, a lot of us use varying degrees of social media, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. There's a benefit to brand uniformity, but is there a danger in applying that one graphic to all of your social media platforms?
That's a good question. It somewhat depends, right? Because if you're posting to Facebook, you want to be more candid, I would say. You want to kind of be getting that engagement and stuff. And then
a little more cheeky, yeah.
Yeah, you want to be a little bit more cheeky. You want to be a little bit more out there and show a little bit more of your personality. And kind of that's where your brand voice really comes in, I find, is on Facebook, especially for a lot of the small businesses in town. And I know that a lot of people here use Facebook primarily. And LinkedIn is sort of the buttoned up, like this is the more professional platform. So there is that to consider. But when you are creating a design, ideally you would like to create that design and have its usability be for all social media streams. And that way you're not kind of reinventing the wheel when you're making another graphic for this and making another graphic for that. If you have the time, that's great. If you have a dedicated social media marketer on your team, that's awesome. But if for most of us, we don't, we're just the one person who wears all the hats. So it's a good practice to kind of take a design and consider how can we transform the copy that's associated when we're publishing this through our social channel so that it kind of fits in with each one. Because that's also a key point as well.
And given the theme of this particular session, advanced, it's about, at this point, we likely understand that you're probably sharing at least one graphic already. So you've had that experience. But, as Taran had mentioned, recognizing that lens and that voice, particularly that if it makes sense to your product and service as well. If you're offering funeral services, you're likely not having quirky fun with that on Facebook, for example, you know what I mean? So it's all about, not only recognizing how your brand looks, but the voice of that brand and the tone of the themes that you're hoping to convey as well. Thanks, Taran.
Exactly. No. Yeah. So then continuing on, we kind of have our smart mockups as well too. So if you're a shop and you're selling your designs on, like different t-shirts and products like that and mugs, etc., you can come over here and use the smart mockup feature. This is kind of neat. I haven't myself done this before. I've never really sold anything on a mug before. I would like to. I think that would be kind of fun. But this functionality is also here as well, just so you guys are aware. And it's pretty easy to use. So we're just going to quickly make one just so that you guys can see. So once you hit, we'll go back here. Once you hit which smart mockup that you want, you just hit select, and it'll take an image straight from your bank. So say if I wanted to do one with the Loblaws logo, I did that for a recent school project. You can kind of just throw that on here and it's done already. So that's now a smart mockup. And then you can use that in all of your designs going forward as well.
Just a note, Taran, Noemi Rodrigue from Sweet and Salty Charcuterie mentions that she's done her business t-shirts on Canva and she says it was great.
Awesome. That's great. Okay. I'm glad to know that someone has done a product on here and actually has had it printed, because I have never printed anything from here before, but I do know that they offer that as well. So that's great to hear. Okay. Yeah. So those are kind of the features of Canva. That's kind of a good overview. Cameron, did you want to go into the tutorial and kind of see, I know you'd mentioned that you had that poll as well and the results of that.
Most definitely. So it's, I guess about 35% of you indicated that, and 26 had responded, had indicated that you have undergone some form of rebrand recently. And so, that's fairly average, especially if we look at our membership. We have 625 business members, and there is that sort of, roughly 30% who are recognizing that it's time that their business, and depending on where they are in their business life cycle, to upgrade some of their logos, materials, fonts, content, particularly as we start to see how its applicability may not be working with a lot of social media as well. So local resources exist. There are some funding opportunities, particularly if you are a small business. Neonet does offer some form of marketing with the Case Alliance Marketing Fund, and you can utilize some of those dollars to either get a local consultant or start to recognize how, where some of the, not particularly downsides, but where some of the lack of compatibility may be within your current branding, and what are some of the things that you need to do to sort of get that your company's brand or your organization's brand up to where it needs to be. So if you are interested in learning about any of that funding opportunity, then do reach out to Taran or myself. We both have the same resources in that field. So as Taran had mentioned, we're going to do a little bit of a quick graphic design. And, I think that the most, do I call it terrifying? Well, you know what, let's be real. It's somewhat terrifying sometimes because, I don't want you to get frustrated because you feel as though your brand is completely incompatible with any of the, sort of templates or graphics that they have already uploaded within Canva. If that's the case, though, do consider where your logo is at in its life cycle, and whether or not it is time to maybe consider a slight rebrand or refresh of your current logo and marketing. So, here I tend to gravitate towards the Facebook post because it's a complete square. And again, this is just going to be a very quick graphic design. So here at the Chamber, obviously we have our own branding templates and logos. We recently undergone, of course, our Find It in Timmins rebrand. It's translated into 4 different languages. You have French, you have Omashkego Cree, you have Hindi, and you have English as well. And so, these graphics belong to all of you. And if you are interested in utilizing them, then you can find the complete download of those graphics and superimpose them on your marketing at finditintimmins.ca. We'll share that later on. But for the most part, you can see here that we have these logos uploaded in here particularly, but we also have some of our main branding content that's in there as well, including our chamber logos and the various colors and iterations, etc. So the one thing I know most of us struggle with is identifying a background or a look or a feel for a particular campaign that we're trying to do. In here, obviously, you have access to all of your uploads. And as you can see here, we recently did one for the Find It in Timmins Rock on the River concert, which was this past weekend. Again, depending on your content or your campaign, recognize that there are likely local charities, nonprofits, businesses that you can partner with to broaden your reach as well. So, if RNS Vision Center is celebrating their 25th anniversary, they've partnered with the Rotary Club so that they can create a community barbecue, and in creating that campaign, consequently are expanding their reach through the Rotary Club's network because they've tagged them duly on social media and have included them within their marketing brands as well. So partnerships locally are always a great way to amplify any campaign that you may be undergoing. And I highly encourage you to do it because it just creates great synergy going forward as well. So templates exist, and I particularly am always hesitant to use the templates because, again, a lot of us want to gravitate towards that. Some of the work is already done, and so consequently it's a little bit easy. But guaranteed that somebody else has thought the exact same way, and so consequently is probably using the same template. I always go into elements, and if we're doing a particular design on wishing somebody a happy grand opening or stuff like that, you have access to a whole range of photos that exist within here. But let's say black and gold, white and red, yellow amplifier, none of this matches really with my branding colors. Well, I can go into this little section right here beside the search query, and it provides me with some standardized colors, but also provides me with an opportunity to enter my own hex code that matches my brand. So it's 00A9CE. And that is our chamber blue, otherwise known as Happy Talk. That was a coincidence. We didn't pick it that way. But anyway, so you can see that it now provides you with a full range of photos that either match or come very close to your brand color. Now, obviously, none of this relates to grand opening, but if we're looking at something like, book reading, let's say, for example, at the library, you have these options as well. And so it depends completely on how you use it. A lot of people want to just drag the photo in here and drop it as it is currently set up. So you have a book in the middle of your marketing campaign that kind of limits you as to where you can put your text. A lot of people, and this is probably not shocking to anybody, read in a Z formation. So you'll start at the upper left corner, you'll scan over to the right, diagonally back down to the left corner, and then finishing off the bottom right. So you want to keep that in mind, especially if depending on how your logo is set up, that you're recognizing that viewing pattern, and you're making sure that your content is layered in a way that it really hits those top points at the top with auxiliary information at the bottom. So I don't like where this book is necessarily situated on the graphic itself. So what I'm going to do instead is just kind of stretch it out a little bit, because really I only need somewhat of the complements of what the book, or rather the graphic represents, and those are the pages there. And so in that case, I'm going to now, don't be like me and have our chamber, or rather have your upload section full of pictures that you no longer use. Take some time to go in there every now and then and clean out some stuff or archive it as you need. But then, as you can see here, I'm just going to scooch that over just a bit. We use our chamber branding in white here because it pops really nice in the background of the blue. Our brand guide, and keep in mind, your brand guide doesn't need to be dense. It can be a one-page cheat sheet, and I'll even show you what that looks like. but do have something that guides you within your branding so that, if it's not you, you have something of a tangible document that you can hand your brand ambassador and they can follow those cues as well. So just to show you what that looks like. Now, of course, we do have, because we did undergo a full rebrand, 21-page brand manual, and it's very prescriptive. But if you don't have the time to create something like that, I believe you should be able to see this, Taran. Okay, great. So this is kind of like a cheat sheet as to how we utilize our logos, where the clear space should be. As you can see, is always left oriented. If we scroll down a little bit, and we were kind enough with our intern who did our rebrand to provide a secondary color palette. And that just means that if we're running auxiliary campaigns or sub campaigns within our overall projects and initiatives, that we have a few more colors to pick from. But here on the left hand is our primary color palette, and it shows, as Taran had mentioned earlier, the various ways in which you identify your Pantones, your RGB, your CMYK, and your hex codes, with a little bit of identifier, as you can see here, as to when we should use the secondary colors and how they should be used as well. Further to that, we utilize what's called Gibson font. It is a standard or substandard set of sort of Calibri font, or that's it is not a sans font. It is something much better, as John Belanger would have me note. But either way, we have our own branded typeface as well, with a secondary should, let's say, for example, Canva not have a particular graphic that we need. However, as Taran had mentioned previously, you can always upload your fonts into Canva so that you have access to them at any time. And I'll show you that we've already done that as well. So here, and now keep in mind, I'm not a professional graphic designer. I don't even play one on TV anymore. So I'm going to rely heavily on Taran. But, there's just the ways in which you want to set something up. And if I can spell that correctly. And the reasons why you do this is that you want to make sure that a lot of your content is sort of, following that loose brand design or brand guideline that you have. And you can always change the font within here. Where do I have my Gibson? Okay, well, it's not working for me at this moment, but needless to say. So because our content is left oriented, the other thing I wanted to mention was that Canva will create spaces and kerning, which means, the sort of spacing between your letters, the way it's visually seen. You ever look at a sign and you recognize that it's just slightly off, and that's because the letters are just, a bit too spaced apart, or the spacing between the lines aren't always on point. We can note that if you go up into your orientation scale here and you make it left oriented, you can also play with the line spacing here. So I'm just going to tighten that up just a little bit because it's giving me a little bit too much gap tooth look, like my own teeth. I'm just going to make it like this. And, depending on what you're trying to achieve, effectively, you're just looking for something simpler. For us here at the chamber, we always want to note that our chamber C is sort of popping on the left-hand side. And so that's why you see that little bit of a gap here. And, you basically wanting to say that you're not limited to the graphics that you find within the element component of Canva, which is just up here, but you can also stretch them and reduce or enhance the saturation of them, including removing the background, which Taran is going to show you, to make it work for your particular campaign that day. So as you can see, it didn't take much time. I went up into the element section of it. I tried to search for what I was looking for. I superimposed my color scheme upon that to even further narrow it down. And now I've got pretty much what I need to do to get this thing uploaded. And so from there, Taran, I'll pass it back to you to talk about how we can sort of, elevate this look and how we can start sharing it with our social media platforms.
That's great. Thanks, Cameron. No, I really like that you touched on the kerning aspect, because I feel like that's something that a lot of people don't realize that you can actually do. And it's also kind of handy too when you have to sort of fit your text into one graphic. I would never recommend putting too much text on something, but if you do have trouble kind of fitting your line into, and you want it to fit onto one space, you can just play around with your kerning and kind of get that going there. Okay.
Just before we continue any further, does anybody have any questions or comments, any concerns? Are we feeling a little more comfortable with how we might continue using Canva? Again, graphic design can be a little bit intimidating because it's either a $5, it's my nephew who's doing it for me, or $1 billion market. And, you know, there is some vast discrepancies in there. So again, feel free to jump in or just put your question in the chat box and we'll continue going about there. Bruno does ask at some point though, Taran, how do you merge the text boxes? And so
Merging. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's take a look, see if I can figure that out, because I don't know too much if you can merge a text box, but what you can do is group them. And I'll show you how to do that first. Maybe I'll just go into do a social media post, and then we'll do another Facebook post. Okay, cool. All right. So as Cameron mentioned, there's a bunch of templates here. I would advise you to actually go through them. And if you don't feel comfortable using a template, you can definitely get some ideas from looking at these, which is great as well. Sometimes I do that as well. So in terms of your question, let's take a look at the text here. So we have a text box. We want to write something like, maybe we'll talk about our boost funding program. So we'll do boost funding, make that a little bit bigger. Put this into our brand color. This is our Victoria purple. Okay, so boost funding, and then our subheading, 50% contribution of up to $10,000. So you wouldn't be able to necessarily merge these text boxes, but what you can do is sort of, with your cursor here, just go and make a big square over it so that you've selected both of them. And then you can group these items together. And so now they're kind of stuck together at all times. And I'm not too sure if that answers your question. Hopefully that does. And in terms of grouping as well, you can also group different items, and I'll show you how to do that as well, just because this one's actually kind of handy. So say if we're just gonna throw this on here just so I can show you kind of how you can selectively group different items. This is going to be our background. This is very bad background. But say if we wanted to group just these two texts, or we just wanted to select these, both of our texts at once. And we can't necessarily do that because our background is just so big and it's taking up so much of it. We can also lock our item that's in the background in place in order to do this. So that way this heart won't move, no matter how many times that I try to force it to move. So there's that feature right here, is lock and unlock. But you can also select more than one item at once. And the way that you can do that is by hitting Shift on your keyboard and then clicking your item that you want to select, and then your other item here, boost funding. So now it kind of groups these two guys together as well, and I can make them both bigger or smaller at once. So that's just how you select two items at once without having to do the whole square over everything, but then, oh no, I only want to put a square on just these two guys. That's a good way of kind of just selecting those two items. And we'll get rid of this heart because we don't actually need this. So we'll unlock it and put it in the trash. And in terms of photos, so I get a lot of questions on how to kind of make your image pop, in a sense where if we just wanted to do this light bulb, but we wanted this light bulb to extrude out of, say, a circle. So I'm going to show you guys how to really quickly do that because it's a fun little feature that you can kind of add to your graphics as well. So I'm going to detach the image from your background. So that's how you detach an image, by the way. I don't know if that's something that a lot of people kind of struggle with, because it bothers me all the time when I drag a photo here and it just wants to automatically attach itself to the background. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to take this light bulb, and I'm going to take this circle, and I want this light bulb to go into the circle like so, but I also want this light bulb to kind of pop out without having the hand or anything like that. So what I'm going to do here is make this light bulb a little bit bigger inside the circle. And as you can see, it's kind of cut off here on the edge. And then I'll take another copy of the same light bulb, and without having it try to go into that circle, I'm going to take this image and I'm going to go to edit image and use the background remover tool. So if any of you guys were in my branding session, not last week, but the week before, and you've noticed that a lot of my images kind of had this effect to them, this is how I achieved it in Canva. So now we have the light bulb again, but we kind of want this to make it look like it's extruding from this circle. So I'm going to go ahead and lock this circle just so that this doesn't keep trying to go in there. We'll still try. But what you can do here to kind of get this, I guess there is no way that you can actually take it out of that functionality where it tries to kind of attach onto that. But what we can do here is take our light bulb, just make it slightly bigger like I did with this image. And just drag this over here and kind of match the sizing so that they're almost the same size. So we have our light bulb. It's basically the same size, but we want to get rid of this hand part so that it looks like it's only the light bulb that's kind of coming out of the circle. So with this capability, you can actually go up and just drag over. So that way that portion of the image is actually cut out. And so now you have a graphic and it looks like your light bulb is protruding from the circle, but you've actually just layered two items there to achieve that. So this is just a fun way to kind of make any sort of graphic pop. And then you can group those items together. So now they're stuck together and now they won't move. So if you resize it, you can make it bigger, you can make it smaller, and it looks pretty cool. This is really neat.
I have to say, I really liked a lot of the branding that you did in Pitch, and a lot of it looked had this sort of pop feature as well. And again, you know, you see it and you go, gee, I wonder how that's created. As you can tell, it's not all that difficult to do, but it's just those tiny little quirks that are really going to make your graphic pop. And you know, if you put this on your purple, Taran, I know that it's just going to, you know, really stand out.
Exactly. Yeah. So next, I know a lot of you guys want to use these as when you're doing an annual report or something like that, and you're trying to insert a link, and that you want that link to take you to a new page, like a statistics page or something like that. I'm just going to go ahead and show you guys how you can add that hyperlink in here. So let's make this background purple. Let's put this light a little bit bigger. We'll add a heading and it'll say our boost funding. And obviously we don't want this to stay black because this is not popping at all. This is not very good. But I'm going to line it up with our page margin here, just so that everything that is text related will stay inside this bounding box that you see here. And that way it kind of establishes that visual hierarchy without getting into too technical of terms. Make this a little bit bigger. Boost funding. We'll make it white just so it pops nice here in the background. And then maybe we'll create a little button here. So using the element tools, element feature, sorry, you can go in here and you can kind of find shapes as well that you can use as buttons. I like to do this pretty often as well. So as you can see, they have all sorts of different kinds of shapes. And you don't just have to use them for as they are kind of. I really like to use this one a lot as like a name banner. So what I'll do is I'll take this and I'll just kind of throw it in the corner and put it here.
Taran, just as we're moving through, so Courtney asks, while we're doing this particular exercise, how do you set up the page bounding?
Sure, it's already preset for you. So I think that the margins are kind of already preset for you. I want to see actually really quick if there is a way to. Yeah, so there's no way for you to adjust the bounding itself. It's always going to be, I think it looks like it's stuck at kind of like an inch or so, or a little bit less than that. But what you can do is resize your document, which I'll show you afterwards, so that you can publish to different social channels. But there's unfortunately no way to take out that to adjust this box that you see here. It's always going to kind of remain at this level.
Okay, excellent. We have two other questions, but we'll queue them just for now because they'll deal with what happens after.
Sure, sounds good. Great, so I have my banner down here, and I'm just going to add some text to this as well. And this is going to say, learn more Make it a bit bigger. Make sure it's centered. So Canva is really good with the whole snap to feature. So it'll kind of show you when you're center of the banner with this line here. Okay, and we're just going to spread it out a little bit. We'll just add another word online just so it fits in here. Make it a tiny bit smaller. And as Cameron mentioned, we can also space out the lettering here. I'm just going to give it just a tiny bit more space, not too much where it's not legible, but just more so that it kind of pops out when you're taking a look at that. So we're going to highlight this and hyperlink it. So an easy way to kind of select everything that's in your text field also, if you do have a large paragraph in which you are trying to select, you can also hit Control A and that will select everything for you. So we can highlight the text here. And then in the top corner, you're going to have this link button. So this link button is where you can enter your link or your search. So over here, we're going to link it to our Boost funding page. Go to Link North, about programs. Type that in here. And now this is hyperlinked. So now anytime that somebody clicks on this, once we're done publishing it, if they click on that, it'll take them to our Boost funding page. So that's how you do that. Showing you how to remove an image from a background or a background from an image. And then we'll kind of show you how to share as well. So there's also the share feature within Canva too. So you can publish directly to your Facebook, your Instagram, Twitter feeds, however you publish your social media. And you can also write stuff here as well. So this is kind of a new tool too. So
and at this point, you will have had to have had your social media accounts linked in order for you to do that. Is that right?
Exactly, yeah. So you would have already gone to your homepage. You would have already had your brand kit uploaded. And within that same tab, I think you can add your social media within the app. And then you
Brenda,
can either.
Oh, sorry, Taran. Brenda asks, just because we're at this stage, do you need to download in a certain format to keep the hyperlink active?
That's a good question. Let's take a look. I think you are able to do it in every single format. I know that for sure. When you do it in a PDF, it will 100% hyperlink there. But let's take a look and see if we do it in a simple JPEG, if that hyperlink still works. So let's download it.
Because it depends on the applicability. If you're putting this in a newsletter that you send out to your clients, then yeah, I suppose a PDF would make more sense.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, when we get to the social components, if it doesn't happen to translate, then we can certainly put it at the body of the text of your post as well.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I think that's definitely the way to go, because it doesn't look like it does hyperlink when you do download it as a JPEG. I've never actually added a hyperlink onto a JPEG or PNG. I've only ever done it for PDF or for presentations. When I know that I'm going to be sending out a presentation afterwards, I want to make sure that all those hyperlinks are in there. And this is also, as Cameron mentioned, it's good for kind of when you're making those reports and you want to link those to certain web pages as well. Cameron, was there another question?
Well, at this time, we're getting to what Brenda, or rather Barb and Jean had asked. But in that case, you know, when we get to that point, I'll certainly flag it. The other thing I wanted to make mention of was, you know, consider how you utilize social media. How do you look at Facebook? How do you scroll through Instagram? How often do you go on LinkedIn? You know, and pretty well the way in which you interact or use your own personal social media is likely going to be the way in which your consumers do it as well. So if you're putting those active links within the body of your text on Facebook, let's say, for example, and then share the photo of your brand new Canva created marketing campaign, then, you know, I myself am not going to open up that image and click on it, because that just does a whole bunch of weird things on my phone. I'd rather just open up the body of the text and then click the link directly in there. And so just keep that in mind when you're thinking going forward. You don't need to overcomplicate it. Just do it in the way that you use social media, because chances are everybody else does it the same way.
Exactly. That's a good point to make. Okay, so I'll go ahead and I'll kind of show you one more feature, and then we can go through some of the questions that you guys might have. So this is my branding and marketing presentation that I'd created for you guys 2 weeks ago. So this is just kind of like an overview of what you can do with it. You have your notes tabs here. And it kind of works very similar to Microsoft PowerPoint. So when you are creating your presentations, in each page, you can write your notes and you can go to that presenter view and then go to your and access your notes that way. So when you're giving a presentation, but I recognize that a lot of people, you do have your brand ambassador, they know how to use Canva, but not everybody on your team knows how to use Canva, but you do want a nice looking presentation. So what you can do is come into here and you can create your presentation, but you can also download it to Microsoft PowerPoint. So when you go to Home, Discover Apps, there is a feature here that allows you to download it straight to Microsoft PowerPoint. So using an existing design, let's see if we can try to download the branding and marketing presentation. Right, and now you can download that as a Microsoft PowerPoint. So that way you can kind of use that within your teams as well. So that's everything that I have to show you guys. Is there any particular questions that anything I can show you?
I think at this point we'll move to the questions that we had previously, and it's, you know, how working with templates, particularly the new style of templates that are in there, you know, how do they create branded templates? And I'm just trying to see what Sean has written here. Just miraculously gone away. How do you make the brand templates? Yeah, so effectively, how do we get into that brand template, and, you know, how do we create a design that works for that particular campaign or product or service, and then going up through that upload process once again.
Okay. Let's go back to our homepage, and I'll go with you guys, and we'll create a Link North template. So we're at our homepage. We've opened up the menu at the side here, and we'll go to, I believe it's under brand. So at this point, you would have already have your entire brand uploaded in your branding colors. Then we'll go to brand templates. And let's just go ahead and create, let's do a business card. So we'll use this template. Okay, you don't want to apply both pages. So straight off the bat, if I'm creating a Link North branded business card, and we want to include our colors, so I'm going to go ahead and change the background. Here I'm going to ungroup this just so that we can kind of separate these two so that the text is not attached to this icon, because we want to go ahead and change that icon and use our own brand iconography. So in our uploads, I'll go down, or a logo, sorry. I'll go down here and I'll find the Link North logo. So I'm just going to go ahead and replace the star with the Link North logo. A bit too big, we'll make it smaller. And we'll center it. So that's in the center there. And then we're going to go ahead and finish this up. So I'm going to add my name here, Taran Hassan. And look for our Fira Sans font. It's usually, there we go, usually right at the top there. And notice how the letterings are very, very close together. So we're going to go ahead and change the kerning of this just to kind of spread it out a little bit, because we do have a lot of space here as well. So we want to make sure that, oops, apologies. I want to make sure that this is spread out so people can read it. And that kind of, again, we talked a little bit about the visual hierarchy, but that does kind of follow through with establishing, when you do have your title above your subheading, you do want your title to stand out a little bit more, and you want it to be quite larger. So that's how you can get that to show. I'm going to add my title here. Oh my goodness, I can't see program coordinator. Going to hit Control A to select all of that. go back in, and I'm going to use this time the Fluorescent Light because we already know from the brand book that this is our subheader font. Make that a bit bigger so it's not.
And I think it's really, you know, I don't want to sound accusatory or anything, but having that uniform look, I mean, your brain is subconscious and conscious is capable of identifying you know, a great many things, and so you utilize that component in branding as well. I mean, if you've got 3 different kinds of font with 3 different types of facing and varying sizes, you know, it's a bit messy, and somebody may not immediately see that uniformity, that clean line type, you know, effect that you're really hoping to go for. I mean, you're taking time to make these marketing and branding posts, then, you know, make sure you're hitting the right points so that, you know, it's going to come across as very effective and consequently, you know, engage a broader audience.
Exactly. That's a really good point to make. So going through this, I'm kind of noticing that my logo is a bit small now that I see that it doesn't really make sense that my logo is a little bit smaller because I can't really see where I work. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger. And then here's a very, very basic business card. But this is kind of how you would get your template set up so that, say, if someone new came in and joined our team, I could just quickly go into this template and just change around the name here, change around the title, and it's already done now. So that's kind of how you access your branding templates. I hope I answered your question. Was there anything more specific towards your branding template that I could show you?
Yeah, Taran, it's Barb McCormick. So what happens if you've done the reverse and you've created a newsletter, let's say,
Okay.
but now I want that to be my brand newsletter, because what happens is I didn't realize there was this section here. So basically everything's in my recent designs, and I would really love to move them to that section so that the entire team knows this is the template we should be following.
Exactly. Okay. Let's take a look. I think you might be able to just drag and drop that design into your actual brand template folder. So if you go here, add new, it should allow you to. Oh no, it doesn't allow you to create or to add an existing design into this, eh?
Not in this particular section, but you are able to. So Barb, it sounds like you're looking to archive or you know, put in a particular folder so that the next time you're doing campaign X, Y, Z, you can simply go into that folder and find those templates. Is that the question?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah, because I think the team would not, I don't think they would go to folders, because I think folders goes down in a different section, or does it? Or can I put a folder in brand?
So I see what you're saying. Yeah, there is that component where like you have starred folders, say for example. So, you know, we have COVID-19 graphics, find it in Timmins, state of mining, you know, different programs and services that we offer that utilize different templates. And we do that in the drop-down section for this particular brand area there. It's meant to be, as Taran had mentioned, sort of that quick create style section. And so that's where you're going to be utilizing that there.
So I'd have to do it from the beginning, start the template in brand versus transporting something already created into brand.
Well, actually, it depends on which way you want to utilize it. Taran, do you mind if I switch over to mine? Okay, thanks. Yes. Okay, so what happens is that if you have a template that you already want to use, so say for example, you know, we have National Volunteer Week, and that is something that you know, we're going to use year over year to kind of celebrate. So I can, you know, save this as an image itself, you know, and then use that image to upload so that I have that template always, or if I needed to use it as a workable, you know, I've already, you know, sort of have this here in my home section. But what you're looking for is, you know, I would upload it into folders here, as you can see, you know, various segments of our programming, and we can always access it through here.
Okay.
I hope that helps.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
No, my pleasure. Nice to hear from you. Some of the other notes as well, and you know, Taran touched on how you can carry through your branding and apply that to almost everything. And again, the purpose of that is that you want somebody who's scrolling through Facebook to recognize your brand and your Sorry, I had some dogs visit me just a minute ago. So, and how you can use that brand so that anybody scrolling through quickly on their phone immediately recognizes that purple and that Link North brand. They go, "Oh, wait a minute, I already know what I'm looking at." But you know, there is another way in which you can get a little bit more creative, a little bit more diverse with your marketing. And something I had mentioned earlier was that secondary palette. So if you know we at the chamber are doing something, let's say we happen to sometimes do our community calendar, and so from that, and by community calendar, I mean it's accessible to everybody. And so you can see here that we have that orange, which was one of our secondary color palettes, and it features various pops throughout the particular community calendar. But if we're also doing something, let's say employment related, and so here we are hiring a summer student. And so rather than make that sort of our main branding of our chamber, which is unique to the programs and services that we want to promote, we want to utilize our secondary colors to sort of highlight that it's still a chamber thing, but it's not part of our main sort of mandate. And so here we utilized our chamber yellow secondary color with a few pops of the blue and incorporating our gray, our chamber gray that we use, so that it becomes somewhat recognizable. Somebody would look that quickly and go, "Oh, okay, that's a chamber thing, but it's different." And so noting that, oh, okay, they were hiring for a student, so that's just sort of an internal processes, and that's why those colors were applied. And again, if you're doing something at the hospital foundation, say for example, or anti-hunger coalition, where you're running your main programming series, and so that's going to follow some of the branding that was provided, but you're also wanting to do a partnership event and you want to do some marketing related to that, then having those secondary colors or secondary palettes will be helpful in making sure that people recognize that it's a different event or a segment or a session of what you're doing, but still belongs very much to your brand, which serves your purpose. Before we continue on a little further, does anybody have any further questions? I know that some of what some of you were looking for before we had come in here was engaging with your client base or your stakeholders, or what have you. And the creation of a brand graphic certainly starts to create that sort of brand recognizability, which is so key to getting people to immediately associate your product or service with your color scheme or your graphic design or what have you. But Taran, what's been your experience, particularly with some of the programs that Link North runs? How are you differentiating between that engagement, particularly with your clients, and how are you kind of carrying that overarching tone but making the engagement feel different?
I think one of the main things that we do is we consistently carry through our brand voice, just to make sure that we're always recognizable across all formats. And we always want to sort of insert you guys into it. So we want to be speaking to the audience anytime that we're writing our copy and things like that, and ask a lot of questions, because that's kind of how you're going to generate engagement itself, is asking those questions to your audience, seeing kind of what's out there, and engaging with them that way, answering any other questions that they might have. You might want to also run some social media contests. Those are kind of fun to do as well. And that way you get a lot of people involved, a lot of people who might not have otherwise have known your page, get them involved as well in posting as well. So that's user generated content. And that's a really good marketing tactic. And you'll see a lot of influencers online do this nowadays as well. But you really you want to set up a definition for what your KPIs look like, what you're hoping to achieve from each social media channel. So I know for us, for example, because we recognize that the Timmins community is largely Facebook-based, Facebook users. That's one that we try to focus on pretty often. So for me, my KPI that I have set out is 2 new page likes per week. So if I achieve 2 new page likes per week, I know that we're having that kind of steady growth. So that's what I like to do when I'm not running campaigns. And just in the background, I want to make sure that two lights are always going on. And then when I'm running a very specific campaign, that's when kind of I'll outline more defined KPIs that are a lot larger, and how exactly am I going to be defining those goals. And you want to kind of set out a plan. And there's a lot of useful, really helpful tools out there, such as Google Analytics, just to kind of measure how many times your pages are being visited, things like that. I know Facebook already has Facebook Analytics in the business suite that it offers, so you can always kind of look back there. And then I know it sounds tedious, but make a spreadsheet and track these things, you know, like which post did good and why did it do good, and make notes to yourself so that your future self will go back and thank you. Also, taking a look at what you did in the past to kind of achieve, oh, there was a jump on this post and I wonder why. Oh, it was probably because I partnered with the chamber on this and I mentioned them, and the chamber has a pretty broad audience. So that way I got more engagement on this one, and that's why this worked for us. So doing those kinds of things and kind of outlining those benchmarks, I think will kind of help you engage with your audience. And that way you can kind of track and measure what's working and what's not working. So I hope that answered your question. That was kind of like an overview of how we do social media marketing.
Yeah, and it's a good point too. And Brenda asks, some examples of social media contests, and I guess it depends. Well, sometimes you have to be careful with the ways in which you do social media contests rather, and you have to be mindful of people's privacy and security. So, for a while people were saying, tag 10 friends in this post and we'll get your chance to win something. So that becomes a Canada anti-spam law type protection, whereby now you're spamming your friends through this business to just get a chance to win $200. So Facebook can actually take action and suspend your account if you are doing some of that. So we'll provide in the follow-up email some resources as to what's allowed on social media platforms in terms of contests and what isn't allowed. And it can result in you getting your page shut down. And that's unfortunate because you put a lot of work into curating and cultivating not only followers, but content as well. An example of, and again, it depends on what makes sense for your business. For us here at the Timmins Chamber, for example, we're running our FYI annual business confidence survey. And so if you haven't had a chance to do that, then you can go visit our LinkedIn. But here, that what we tend to do is provide incentives to engage with our posts. So this one is, for example, a chance to win a $200 gift card to a chamber member of your choice should you fill out the survey. And so we've received some great engagement from this on Facebook particularly. I just went to LinkedIn because I knew I could find it quickly. And some other examples of some contests. We've done some Easter hunting, let's say, for example. So, during Easter, if you post a photo of a local purchase that you've done within Timmins, then you'll, get entered into a draw to win. We tend to do gift certificates from our members because we want to support them. But if you're selling a particular product or service, especially a new one, and you want to highlight that, you can say, chance to win 50% off. You can tailor that however you'd like. But those giveaways tend to be great. Just, if you're trying to increase your follower base or what, I don't want to say fellowship, but follower base, then I would highly encourage you not to start asking people to engage their friends in it, especially if they haven't already liked your page, because that could get a bit dicey. So that would be my suggestions. Anything else, Taran, that I might have missed?
No, I think that was great. I think definitely make sure that you're adhering to the outlines of the platform that you're posting on, but also kind of leverage partners that have a pretty broad audience. So I know for our Boost in Action campaign, we ended up kind of leveraging the audience of Kins and Klomp. We teamed up with them because we knew that they had a Timmins fan base that was quite large. So what we did was we teamed up with them. We created some content with them, and we made sure to kind of link them and then engage with them in the comments. And anyone who follows them, that you guys probably already know this, but they're really, really good at social media, and they're always engaging online, and they want to have that communication with their audience and their followers. So they're a pretty good page to follow for just some tips on social media contests as well, because I know that they do run those too. So if you ever run out of ideas, look around you and see what other people are doing, because they're likely doing something right if their page is growing.
Actually, I'm really happy you said that because I was about to launch into the Chamber Network is really great at R&D or robbing and duplicating, and there's no shame in that. Now, I wouldn't necessarily go to your direct competitor and start copying exactly what they're doing, but maybe find a community with a similar demographic, Morden, Manitoba, say for example, and identify not a competitor, but somebody within your sector who may be doing some successful work and work at it. I mean, again, there's nothing within Canva particularly that could be copyrighted, mainly because a lot of it is stock photo. So you don't have to worry too much about that. And, as I kind of flatten out the themes within the what do you hope to leave the session with, I mean, I know a lot of you are looking for tips and tricks, but effectively it's just that increased comfortability level with utilizing Canva as your main graphic design. I mean, any graphic designer will utilize things like Photoshop and Light Studio and things that require actual training to do. And so, there's a lot of value in investing in somebody who has that familiarity with design, and that would be their bread and butter. But for yourself, as potentially a small organization or business who may not have the funds right now to invest in that level of rebrand, then Canva is really your best bet when it comes to creating some really impactful and engaging design content. And in doing so, the best way to become familiar and become comfortable with it is really just about getting yourself in Canva and, spend half hour to an hour a week, just sort of, poking around and understanding, some of the neat features. And again, like Taran had mentioned, they're always coming up with new plugins and features that can enhance, any sort of design component within the particular graphic that you're looking to make. But further to that, it's about doing a little bit of research. And so, on your Instagram or on your Facebook's business page, follow those other businesses in other parts of the country or the world, depending on what you sell or provide, and get some ideas from them. Follow them on Instagram, and then every now and then just swipe through and see if there's a campaign that could be applied to your business or organization. There's no sense in reinventing the wheel if there's there, and there's no shame in doing that. Just make sure that the content that you are copying is not copyrighted or infringes upon any particular litigious components of what could happen. Taran, is there a few more things that we want to touch on before we might want to broaden the floor to some Q&A?
I think I covered everything. If anybody had any specific questions that we could answer, that would be great.
Don't be shy. Go ahead, Madison.
Does Canva have the ability to turn like a logo that's in color, for example, to black and white? Is that a feature that's within Canva?
That's tricky. Okay. So sometimes you can do that. If you have a logo and there's not too many colors playing into it, sometimes you are able to kind of tweak it so that you can change the saturation to black. But overall, I want to say no. You would have to kind of go into Photoshop, discard all the color information, and then upload it that way. But we can kind of see if we can get close to that really quick. I just want to see if I'm able to do it as well. Okay, so let's go back to this graphic. Let me share my screen.
And this kind of goes back to and Madison, I totally get it, because you do want to have some sort of flexibility to your branding. There is going to be some limitations to Canva, and I know that you know this, but for those who may be considering, really trying to get some successful marketing campaigns out of Canva, there is a point at which you may have to consult with a graphic designer who has access to Photoshop, just to get you set up to where you need to be to have that level of flexibility. But Taran, I'll pass it back to you.
Exactly, yeah. Okay, so let's see if we can make this Link North logo black. I don't think that we can, but I just want to double check this for you just to make sure, see if we can dull down any of this and see if this kind of, now you can get gray tones, but maybe we can play around with the intensity.
Yeah, it's not like MS Paint where you could have like gone back in. Go ahead, Stephanie, sorry.
There's actually a couple. I just discovered it not too long ago. Once you're in there, I'm not exactly sure where it is, but there's actually add-ons that you can add to Canva for free. So like our logo is just like black. So I was able to change it to like white, pink, purple. Like there's a few different They're add-ons, but they're free within Canva.
Okay. That's
And
forget
awesome.
what they're
do you
called.
have the
I'll go-
paid? Do
I'll
you
go
have the paid version?
You didn't have to pay for them. No, they were free.
Okay, excellent. But you have the paid version of Canva?
I do, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Oh, by the way, I should mention, you know, for nonprofits, I think you can apply for a $16 a month the fee for the Canva Pro. And again, I don't know if you noticed, but in some of the photos in your elements or your templates, they'll have a little crown. I don't know what the purpose of the crown serves, but anyway, there's a crown there that indicates that you need the Pro version to access some of those things. For a business, Taran, I'm not entirely sure. You're probably looking about 30 odd dollars a month, but again,
Yeah.
it's an investment for easeability and you know, user friendly access. So
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, so as Stephanie mentioned, there's an add-on in here. So we'll get you that name and we'll send it out in that follow-up email as well of that add-on and how to access that. So that way you can change your logo colors as well, because I know that that's a functionality that a lot of people want to do. And I myself always get asked to do that as well when I am creating Canva templates for clients. So that's actually really good to know. So thank you for sharing that, Stephanie.
No problem. I actually found it. It's just right when you're in edit image, you just scroll all the way to the bottom and it says you may also like, and then there's like ones that I've already used before. There's like Prisma, color mix, paint effect, duotone, and it just changes everything. And it's all within I have Canva Pro though, so it might not be available to everybody.
Okay.
Okay, well, we're coming up to time now. So I did before, you know, if anybody's got any questions now, speak now or forever hold your peace. No, I'm kidding. You're certainly welcome to email us at any time. And Taran and I are both really keen to just take a moment and help you through whatever you're trying to do within Canva as well. So Taran, I wanted to provide an opportunity for some final words before we close out.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time to come today and learn a little bit about Canva. And we'll definitely address those questions that you guys had in that follow-up email. And of course, please do feel free to reach out to myself or Cameron if you do have any questions about Canva as well, because I know that sometimes we're going through these things a little bit too quick. So if you do have any of those follow-up questions, do not hesitate to reach out.
And on behalf of the chamber, we want to thank Link North Case Alliance for continuing to support this this brand pillar this year and our Reimagine Resiliency series as well. So thank you to all of you. I can't wait to see all the creative things that's going to come out shortly after the session, and I'll be monitoring all of your Facebook pages and providing all the likes I can. So in that case, I wish you a great day, and I can't wait to see you again soon. Take care.